Moving on, it's a packed schedule for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during the Mumbai leg of his visit today. During his day-long stay, the Israeli Prime Minister will meet business leaders and pay tribute to the victims of the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. The two leaders also pay tribute to Mahatma Gandhi at the Sabarmati Ashram yesterday. Prime Minister Modi gave a tour of the world-famous ashram, which was Mahatma Gandhi's residence for 12 years. Netanyahu will also attend a Shalom Bollywood event among other engagements. Later in the day, Netanyahu will meet Moshe Holzberg and his family at the Nariman house in the city. Remember, Moshe lost his parents in the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. Netanyahu will also hold a meeting with the Jewish community in the city. He will also address the India-Israel Business Summit at the iconic Taj Hotel in South Mumbai. According to reports, there may be a one-on-one meeting between Israeli Prime Minister and Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis. Earlier on Wednesday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu received a grand welcome in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's home state, Gujarat.
आज हम देश में पूरे सिस्टम को इनोवेशन फ्रेंडली बनाने की दिशा में काम कर रहे हैं। हमारा मंत्र है, क्यूरियोसिटी से जन्मे इंटेंट, इंटेंट की ताकत से बने आइडियाज, आइडियाज की ताकत से हो इनोवेशन, और इनोवेशन की ताकत से बने हमारा न्यू इंडिया।
Now Prime Minister Modi is changing India by the force and vision of his leadership. He is revolutionizing India. He is catapulting it into the future and is as one of the world's great powers. And he's doing it through the power of innovation. Prime Minister Modi once said, each of us has a natural instinct to rise like a flame. Let's nurture that instinct. I Create does exactly that. It takes a small flame of inspiration and it nurtures it into a roaring fire of ingenuity.
All right, to bring us up to speed with what's happening, I'm joined by WION correspondent Pragya Jha, who's joining us from Mumbai. Good morning, Pragya. Please give us more details. How's Mumbai rolling out the red carpet for the Israeli Prime Minister?
On his maiden visit to India and the last leg of this ongoing visit in Mumbai, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu landed in the financial capital last evening. He was welcomed in the traditional Peshwai style by the Chief Minister of the state, Devendra Fadnavis. Now also you can see visuals of high security and cordon off in and around the prominent location of the Gateway and Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in Colaba. Now the entire hotel, the periphery of the hotel is guarded, is under heavy security and heavily guarded so as to avert any kind of security violation or situation for the Prime Minister, his wife and the entourage that has come here with him. Now talking about his day today in Mumbai, the Prime Minister will be meeting 200 businessmen from prominent companies, from Indian Merchants Chamber in Mumbai, from the Maharashtra Merchants Chamber here. So in total 200 businessmen will be meeting up with the Prime Minister. There's going to be a select business houses, members of select business houses will also be with him. We'll have the pleasure of having breakfast with him. So there's a power breakfast that is in line also. Then post the business summit that ends around 12:30 p.m. the Prime Minister is expected to pay his respects at the 26/11 memorial, which is inside the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel's ground floor. So the memorial is housed in this very hotel. Also post that, he will be visiting the Chabad House, the Jewish Communities Center, where baby Moshe, who's also in Mumbai, the survivor of the 26/11 terrorist attacks, will be unveiling the live memorial in dedication to those who lost their lives. So this event will take place. The Prime Minister will be going towards the Chabad House. Post that, at 4 o'clock, he is all set to meet in a private event of sorts the members of Jewish community, of Jewish descendants who are here in Mumbai. So in Mumbai, approximately 400 to 500 Jewish people, Jewish families reside here. And after that, the highlight of his stay today in Mumbai is the Shalom Bollywood event, where the Prime Minister will meet the who's who of Bollywood here in Mumbai. With video journalist Sanjeev, Pragya Jha, WION.
Right, for more of this, I'm joined by a guest on this broadcast. We're joined by Harsh V. Pant, who's a distinguished fellow and head of ORF's Strategic Studies Program. Mr. Pant, thank you so much for speaking to World is One News. How do you see Netanyahu's visit to Mumbai today?
Very significant, because this is an attempt to broaden the base of a relationship that has largely been about government to government, that has largely been about defense, that has largely been about security. So I think what Mr. Netanyahu will be doing in Mumbai is making a case for stronger Indo-Israeli economic cooperation, something which has been stagnating for some time now. And I think that is very important for the long-term sustainability of this relationship. Plus, as your correspondent pointed out, the two elements, which is the people-to-people contact, and related to that is how do you engage, how do you enhance that by linking India's film industry to so that they can go and look at Israel as a destination, something akin to what perhaps Switzerland became in the early days. So I think there is an idea here which is to take this relationship to another level, and throughout this visit we have seen that happening.
Right. Mr. Pant, today the visit is essentially divided into three aspects: A, business; B, Bollywood; and third, he's also meeting members of the Jewish community. And it's important in this scenario, because for a long time the Jews in India have been asking for a minority status. They have certain grievances. There's a visa issue. How do you see that pan out? And could you please throw some more light on the Jewish community? Because remember, Netanyahu has also said that India is one of those very few countries where Jews have been treated very well, and they haven't faced persecution like other countries.
See, I think India...
All right, Mr. Pant, I'm really sorry I have to interrupt you. I'm really sorry I have to interrupt you. We are getting live visuals from Mumbai, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting leaders, business leaders, and there on the screens we can see Chanda Kochar. She's a leading banker and she has the ICICI Bank. So leading bankers, leading business leaders on the screens. We also see Netanyahu with other top-notch global and corporate titans from the business community. Yeah, Mr. Pant, please continue. We're saying something.
Yeah, I was relating to your question earlier about the Jewish community and how they have integrated into India, and how India has treated them, compared to most other places where they faced persecution. And I think that's an important sentiment that goes all the way to contemporary Indo-Israeli relations, where you have most of the young Israelis after the military service come to India. And I think that is something that has remained largely untapped, because there has been no state level attempt or government level attempt to make a case that, look, this is a relationship that goes back in history because of the Jewish community, small though it may be, but I think well integrated into India, and also the historical legacy of India being a very tolerant country towards them. So I think that sentiment needs to now go out, and something that I think both Mr. Modi and Mr. Netanyahu have pointed out during this visit is something that Mr. Netanyahu wants to take back to his homeland and to sort of spread it out, so that the larger relationship can be cemented between people to people, between the two peoples who already have a very warm sentiment towards each other, but not much is known. So I think that is this idea that you want to take this relationship beyond just the governmental level towards an aspect which is perhaps more important. And there, this idea that somehow there are concerns in the Jewish community that he'll be meeting them in Mumbai today. They'll be asking some questions as to what perhaps Mr. Netanyahu can do. And given his warm relationship with Mr. Modi and the government, between the two governments, I don't see why certain candid conversations about perhaps some of the grievances of the Indian Jewish community cannot be taken up. But I think largely what the message that you are getting out is that, look, this is a relationship that has to move beyond the state, but beyond the government. And Mr. Netanyahu, whether he is doing, whether he's meeting the economic titans, whether he's meeting the Jewish community, or whether, later on when he goes and with baby Moshe, and makes a statement on the terrorism aspect, which connects the two people like very few two countries can make a case for. So I think there is a larger underlying sentiment in favor of this relationship that Mr. Netanyahu wants to tap, that Mr. Modi has tapped in his attempt to integrate Israel as a partner in Indian foreign policy.
Right. Mr. Bant, let's also tell our viewers that all those who were present in that meeting were Anand Mahindra and Mr. Godrej also. Mr. Bant, for the benefit of our viewers, beyond the rhetoric, the fine print of diplomacy, international relations, for the benefit of our viewers, if you could decipher why India needs Israel at this moment and vice versa, why both countries. We all know that the two countries have been really close to each other strategically, and recently we've seen how Modi and Netanyahu's chemistry has been grabbing the headlines. But if you have to break it down, if you have to dumb it down for everyone, why does India need Israel and vice versa?
I think the point, again, that is being made during this visit by the Israeli officials, that if there is one idea that dominates Indo-Israeli relationship today, that is innovation. And when you say innovation, it means multiple things, because it cuts across sectors, it cuts across multiple dimensions, and ultimately, when we look at Israel, we look at a state, we look at a country that has made, taken enormous strides in various spheres, primarily based on its innovative spirit and the kind of innovation ecosystem they have been able to create across sectors. We have been talking a lot about agriculture over the last few days, how right. Israel and India have been collaborating on agriculture. Yesterday they visited what had happened in Gujarat. So I think if you look at agriculture, this is a country in desert, this is an arid area. They have, by innovative methods, they have been able to generate productivity, something that India wants to tap into. On the other hand, Israel wants to not only tap into a large market, and there is also Israel's recognition that India is a very important player in global politics, makes it more mainstream for Israel, which has faced enormous problems.
Right. Mr. Band, let's first listen into what Benjamin Netanyahu is saying right now. He's with the business leaders, and let's listen in what he's saying.
We see it when we walk the streets, there's houses that we live here. And then we see it when they come to visit. We see it, it's powerful. It's leaders, it's people. But I think the most important is to have it among business leaders and technological leaders and entrepreneurs like ourselves. This is the cherry on the top. What a cherry. So I thought we discussed the cherry. I thank you. Thank you for coming here. We'll continue without this. Without you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excuse me. All right, so these are the live visuals that we are getting in from Mumbai, where Israeli Prime Minister is meeting top-notch corporate titans in Mumbai, and it's another push for boosting business ties between India and Israel. It's a power-packed day, a power-packed itinerary of the Israeli Prime Minister. He will be meeting, he's right now meeting top-notch business names, and then he'll be meeting the Jewish community, then he'll be also meeting the 26/11 Mumbai attacks survivors, and eventually he will also meet the top names of Bollywood in Shalom Bollywood event. Mr. Harsh, if you're still with us, amid this, optics, the rhetoric, the body language, the headlines, there's criticism also that Israeli Prime Minister is facing a lot of backlash, is facing a lot of criticism back home. And a lot of people are saying that his reach out to Bollywood is also a result of the cultural boycott that Israel is facing right now. That's the other side of looking at it. Leading names like Lord cancelled her concert in Israel. So how do you see this? That is it because Israel is facing a sort of cultural isolation as far as the world is concerned? Is it, is India the platform? Is India that option that's giving Israel that backup when it's facing global condemnation? Or is it another effort to bolster ties between the two countries?
Well, see, for Israel, it is very important to maintain contacts with major powers in the world. That has been Israeli strategy right since the very beginning, because it came into existence in a very difficult environment, and Israel never had many friends. So I think gradually, as its weight increased, and this is a point that Mr. Netanyahu made in his speech at the Raisina dialogue earlier this week, that look, we came out from a very difficult existential crisis. We developed our hard power, ultimately soft power based on our cultural roots. And that has allowed us to have relationships with countries across the board. So today it's not simply India, but if you look at Israel's relationship with China, it's very significant. Of course, they have a traditional relationship with America. They have relationships with Europe. Now there are segments in every liberal democracy which will sort of oppose certain policies. We have had left parties in this country who have been protesting Mr. Netanyahu's visit. But I don't think that takes away from the fact that the larger trajectory of India-Israeli relationship is situated in a context where the two countries have always been great partners. Now imagine a context in which you were fighting Kargil war and Israel was not there to help you. How would you win that? So I think there has been a lot of hypocrisy on the Indian side in this context. That you would take everything from Israel but not recognize it as a friend. I think what Mr. Modi's visit and this visit has done is to make a case that, look, this relationship has to be in the open. And if there are criticisms from certain sections, both India and Israel are liberal democracies, a point that Mr. Netanyahu also made, that you are free to criticize. So I don't think that takes away from the fact that the two democracies in South Asia and Middle East are coming together.
Right. Mr. Pant, please stay on with us. I'm also joined by Sumit Chaturvedi, who covers the stock markets and business for us. Sumit, please give us more details about this breakfast with business leaders that Israeli Prime Minister is having right now. Who all are there at this breakfast table, and what does it mean? Are there any big deals? Are there any big tie-ups that one can expect?
Well, Archana, these meetings are done in mind keeping the future prospects that each country offers. Keeping that in mind, today business leaders have met Israel Netanyahu, keeping in mind the business prospect they will offer, the market it has, and the startup sector also. But having said that, today happens to be a historic day as well, when Indian markets have once again touched historic highs of 35,500. They are moving towards that. Having so keeping in mind reforms undertaken by government, a lot of initiatives are being taken by the government. Business is important there. It becomes important there, and that's why the meeting is more important, because the big players, the captains of the industry are there. Most of them would like to access the Gulf markets or other global markets where Israeli partnership will be of benefit to them. Also, Israel is very good in technology. That kind of help they will get from Israel. From that point of view, this meeting is good because it is definitely keeping in mind the future prospects which Israel will offer for Indian companies and what Indian can do for Israel. Also, how Israel can partner with these companies. So going forward, we could see certain MOUs being signed or partnerships being considered between Italian companies and Indian companies. But yes, it is also important on a day when Indian markets are touching historic highs and reforms are also taking shape.
All right. Thank you so much, Sumit Chaturvedi, for that update. And thank you so much, Mr. Harsh Pant, for joining us on the broadcast. We've completely run out of time, but that remains our top focus, the power-packed day for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We'll keep a close track on those developments. For now, we'll close this bulletin.